Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone was able to, have a great trading day yesterday. Apologies for not being around. I had to take care of the kids and play Dr. Dad for a little while. Sick kids, never a fun thing. But we are back and ready to rock and roll. So, as always, before we jump on in, make sure to swing on over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. From there, you're going to be able to register for our daily newsletter list to be notified every time one of these videos comes out. And along with that, in the email, we talk about a bunch of stuff that we just don't have time to talk about in the live stream. And that's going to be everything from stocks, crypto, options, you name it. If it's moving, it's going to show up in that newsletter at some point. So make sure to sign up for that so you don't miss anything important. Along with that, click on the live trading subscription and trial info. From there, you can register for a free 3-day trial in the room. You can hang out with us for a couple days and see what we're all about, how we approach the markets, how we like to trade, ask some questions, and just generally have some fun with us. So make sure to sign up for that if you haven't done so already. Now, looking at the news for tomorrow. Plenty of news, but none for the U.S., or at least no big news announcements for tomorrow. Tomorrow does have Canadian news at 8:30. That's the core CPI for April, and the core retail sales for March forecasted at 0.5%, but nothing for the U.S. So we're going to be winding the week out with a little bit of a lackluster news calendar. A lot of times when you have that lack of news, that can lead into a Friday being quite slow. A lot of traders don't really want to stick around when there's not anything expected to move the markets around, so they end up kind of calling it quits a little bit early, and that creates a situation of early in, early out, and that might be something that we have to keep in the back of our mind going into tomorrow. Now, looking at the charts First of all, the euro is still just kind of going sideways. We're not really seeing a whole lot of movement up or down. We're not really getting anything going too crazy. And for the most part, the euro is just kind of grinding it out at these lows. Still looking for a major support test at 17,900, looking for a rotation down to those lows. See if they can crack down just a little bit underneath that. 17,900 is the beginning of the level, but I really would become interested at around 870 just to get that little bit of a blow off on the bottom, since this is a fairly bearish market. It might even go a little bit further than that, but the main idea here is not putting it directly at the low, but looking for a little bit of an offset so that it kind of accommodates for a more explosive market, I think is the best way to put it, as we can see on that giant drive to the downside. Resistance still up at 19,555. No new levels of resistance on the way down. It's been pretty calm, quiet, not a whole lot of continuation movement. If anything, we have a big spike down into a spike in channel, and that does create an area of interest. If we can get price to pull back in towards the beginning of where this channel point started, that is a large area of sell side resistance. If we start seeing that they're having a little bit of a hard time here. So let's spread this forward a little bit. Let's just say, I don't know, we'll give it a month. Out there we go. So this is the line in the sand, the zone in the sand, if you will, of where sellers are likely going to come back in and try to push the market back down. Are they going to hold it exactly and we go flying a million ticks down? Probably not, but that is the first area of interest where sellers will begin starting to push back, and that's why we want to keep a track of that, just in the event that they do want to pull back and give us something to work with here. So we'll load that up. Aside from that, though, there's not really much else going on. Pretty back and forth, pretty range bound, not a whole lot going on. So we got to treat it as a range, looking to buy low, sell high, stay out of the middle, and there is an edge to the sell side, if that wasn't obvious enough. So selling on corrective phases to the upside, selling high is a little bit more preferable than buying low. If you're going to be buying low, better off to use an offset instead of buying, like we were saying, at the exact level. Bump it down a couple notches underneath it in the assumption that it will, kind of break through those support zones. Outside of that, though, the euro is still looking good and bearish, just waiting for a corrective phase to sell into to push the market back down. Looking good. Over on gold, we have almost an identical scenario here. We have a situation of another spike in channel type formation. Big blow off down through major support. That was at 1300 level, and now we are winding off into a spike in channel. Another one of those types of patterns that looks pretty good, looking for continuation for the sell side. And honestly, this is one that I really wouldn't mind seeing it blow off the highs a little bit. See one of these big bull candles and then failure at the top, because that would push us back into the 1300 area. So I am looking for the same thing as the euro, looking for sell side action in this zone here, this little red highlighted zone, but with a little bit more kind of sidestep mentality of, okay, well, if it is flying higher, might want to step to the side a little bit, let it come back up and tap that 1300 before it starts cycling down. Aside from that, though, everything else does look really good. There's nothing else new to add to gold because nothing's really changed inside of this choppy back and forth movement. So just looking for a corrective phase back up to around 1295 if you cut it in half for a level of selling to push back down again. And then if we jump, a little bit further back, kind of zoom out and say, okay, well, 1300 is right there. Maybe a blow off into 1300. And then a fallback lower would make a little more sense. We'll have to kind of wait and see what they want to do, but at least around 12, we'll just say 1296 to give it the benefit of the doubt, with a slight push up to 1300 is the area of interest for selling. Looking good there. And then just so we don't lose track of it, we'll put our orange line up on top there, so 1296.4. Drop that down. Let's take a look at crude. Crude oil is finally pulling back a little bit again. It had a breakout move back above that 7103, and that level was just an absolute train wreck. I mean, just struggle bus the whole way through until we finally broke out. Now, this breakout move, it's not that great, honestly. I mean, it does have some really good consistency to the upside with, back-to-back-to-back bull bars. But then the bears show up and they wipe out basically, 12, 16 hours worth of price action? It doesn't really bode well for the buyers. We've got this good continuation to the upside. We break above resistance, and then it immediately fails back down again. Something's wrong. So even though we do want to be on the buy side here with this continuation to the upside, it doesn't look great right now. It's running into some problems. So instead, what I'm looking for is a retest of the inside swing. Find some resistance at 71.89 and potentially find some scalping to the downside against this trend. And if we can start breaking above it, then we can use it as support. So kind of a double-edged sword there at 71.89, looking to utilize it both ways. And we're kind of getting out of this back and forth sort of range situation. They're not really respecting it as well, so I'm going to get rid of these ranges because they're just not helping that much anymore. So we have our big round number at 70. We have our objective on a retest of 71.89 for possible selling. If we break above it, then using it as support to bounce the price back up towards 72.47 makes some pretty good sense here. Another thing to keep in mind is the fact that we do have a wedge top coming across the highs, and we have yet to hit those highs. So seeing a push back above, use it as support, and get that test would be pretty viable objective to the upside if the buyers are going to come back in. For right now, though, 71.89 is a line in the sand. Can't really get much else going if they can't break above that. Support also at 70.84. So, you know, we do have some things underneath us to prop the market up. If it does want to dip lower, then probably going to get magnetized back to that big 70 number. Looking good there. And then the S&P. Now, man, the S&P, it's in a rough spot right now. The S&P is not really getting anything done. It's trying to get a rally up, that fails. Tries to pull down, that fails. It's just stuck. If we look at the candles over the past, each one of these is 4 hours. So we've got 4, 8, we've got another 16. I mean, good Lord, 24 hours of basically nothing. Slight down edge, but that's really about it. Even when they tried to break above it, that fails too. So there's just not much going on to really kind of show, yeah, you know, we really want to be on the buy side, and there's not really much saying that we need to be on the sell side either. It's just neutral right now with a bull edge, right? The buyers have a slight probabilistic edge to the upside. So because of that, I'm looking to buy cheap. I want to buy dips back down to 2,700, 26.97 quarter in those areas, because obviously the buyers are not interested above these highs. If they were, it would have broken out already. And given the fact that we have 48 minutes left on this candle and it looks like this, yeah, I mean, they might be, you never know, they might be able to push up to the highs and complete this giant bull bar. Probably not going to be the case though. So looking at some pretty strong weakness here, we have two levels of resistance, 27.5 and 25, both of which have been tested and both of which so far have been successfully held down by the sellers. So we've got a couple levels above us, a bunch of levels of support below us, and that's kind of the main thing that I'm looking for, is a dip down to buy at around 26. I mean, again, dipping below 2,700 to 26.97 quarter. Not much of a blow off, but just a little bit underneath it for a pop back up would look really, really nice. That's about it, though. There's nothing else to add to the S&P. It's just kind of blah inside of here. So, again, I think the big thing really is just waiting for more info. And that's kind of where it sits. So, slight range, slight bull bias at the moment. That can shift, obviously, very quickly whenever the market's kind of hung up like this. But we'll have to wait and see what they want to do. Looking good, though. Not bad at all. Let's see here. So that's going to do it for the future side of things. Plenty of movement overall. You know, it's just not really that good of movement. We need a little bit more continuation on some of these things. We'll have to wait and see. Over on the stock side of things, taking a look at our favorites, of course. Zoom out a little bit. Let's take a look at Twitter. Twitter is still just stuck here. It looks like, if anything, Twitter is creating a little bit of a pennant type, flag type formation here. Not really getting a whole lot done. Wouldn't necessarily be that bad to see a dip down to 32, 31.5 in that area for buying pressure right back up again to see if they can break out above this 33. But so far, 33 has been kind of a pretty strong line in the sand, and it doesn't look like buyers want to get above it yet. That could just be yet, but right now we're just not getting anything done. It's just kind of stuck. Another one on that list would be Roku. Roku is another one that has a decent amount of back and forth and a lot of volume these days. But it's not really getting anywhere. And it's kind of a similar situation where we have this beautiful bear trend to the downside, and then we have this. And I don't really think this entices anybody. This does have a bear edge to it. So what I wouldn't mind seeing is a pop back up to around 40s for a cycle back down again from there. Kind of hung up, but Roku definitely has been interesting the past couple days. Boeing also on that list, pulling back and just kind of getting hung up. Still not able to break above 350, but the sellers aren't able to get anything done either. That's a good thing for continuation back to the upside. We just need to see the buyers show up to the party and really hit this thing so we can get going. Having a hard time, though. One of interest that actually popped up today, it's a new IPO that is PS. Now, I know the daily chart looks great, doesn't it? It's a little bit of a gross one inside of here. But if we look at something a little bit faster, because it doesn't have any days of data because it just opened today. If we look at the overall 5-minute chart here, you can see I traded it a little bit this morning as well. Beautiful little pop there. For the most part, the market's just kind of stuck right now. We have a huge amount of volume coming in. Right now, the volume's at 11.3 million. So obviously, traders are interested in this stock, right? This IPO launched really nicely, beautiful breakout to the upside, and now we're just kind of hung up. This is something of interest because whenever an IPO launches, you tend to get this situation where they drive up or down, they do their initial thing as soon as they launch, but then you get that first, 5 to 10 minutes of the day, right? And that creates a zone of interest. Now, if it is a good, strong stock that people like, it'll usually break out of the highs like we saw today on PS and get a nice lift to the upside for a really nice, solid move, especially if you're trading some size. You can get some beautiful trades in there to get that breakout to the upside. This is where it starts to get interesting, though, because after that IPO breakout to the upside, a lot of times it starts pulling back, and everybody that bought that breakout, maybe bought the correction inside of here somewhere, they're starting to take profit. And the more bear that shows up, the more bear bars. You get a bear bar here, not that big of a deal, but then it starts kind of breaking down a little bit more. Then they're starting to exit, and it creates this kind of slide off of the highs, and it usually ends up breaking down through the lows. In this case, we don't see that, right? And that could be a pretty good sign of strength in the sense that we have that first, 5-10 minutes or so. We broke out beautifully above those highs, pulled all the way back down, gave quite a bit of it back, pulled all the way down to 1950, and now it's cycling all the way back up towards, put in a high of, 2045 or so. It's not looking that bad, especially given that big miss on the lows. This could be a multi-day runner, similar to what we saw on Huya. Huya was another one that did a similar situation. Now, obviously, on the daily chart, we have a little bit more days of data on Huya, but we can see, started off with a relatively weak move, but then it had back-to-back really strong bullishness to the upside. And if we look at when the IPO launched, we can see a similar situation, right? IPO launch, first 5 minute, in this case, first 5 minutes, breaks out above the highs, tries to crack through the lows, misses the lows, grinds its way, and then the next day it goes rallying back up to the highs again. It's an almost identical situation, just a little bit more bearish in the way that PS formed because of that slide off at the beginning. Something to definitely keep our eyes on. We could be seeing some really, really nice movement going into PS for the next couple days here, given the way that this looks. Aside from that, though, there's not really much else on the radar. Pretty calm and quiet. I thought someone, was it on Twitter? I know someone was asking about, Tesla, that's what it was. Wanted to take a look at Tesla. So let's pop up the daily again. TSLA. And let's zoom out a bit. So Tesla, for the most part, it's doing okay, right? I mean, for the most part, it's not really getting much done. If we zoom out to something like a weekly chart, we can get a little bit of a clearer picture in terms of what to kind of expect here. We have a nice bull trend. Obviously, things got a little bit crazy when back in May 2013. But ever since then, it's been going up. Aside from a quick little dip down that we had kind of a breach of some previous major structure, that was it. That was the only time it really pulled back that hard. And now this time around, we're seeing a similar situation. We put in a high of almost 400, right? Got in, I believe, as high as around 387, something like that. And it's starting to pull back. When it came back to the highs, it retested it as resistance, and now we're pulling back down to retest this earlier structure zone that formed inside of here. Now, what's the big thing that stands out? First of all, this was a nice range back here, right? The market held the range high, low, high, low. When it broke out below the lows, it went firing to the upside, even held the high again on the retest. Obviously, buyers are interested on the lows, and now that we have a breakout, a very aggressive breakout of the range, we're pulling back. They tried to dip inside of that, and it rejected it right back up again. So on a very long-term picture, keep in mind this is a weekly chart, we're coming back and retesting an area of structure where the market has previously found a lot of resistance, now probably going to find a lot of support around that 285 to 280 mark. Now, the big key thing here is that we had an attempted breakdown that immediately failed. As soon as it starts pulling back, that's the buying area with the assumption that the price should stay above that zone. If it begins to fail underneath it, then there are some warning signs to potentially look out for that they could come crashing, ironic Freudian slip there, down to 180 or so if that begins to kind of crack down. Now, looking on a daily chart, we can see that there isn't really a whole lot going on the daily. It's just a little bit sort of stuck, grinding its way down for the most part, just in a range. So In terms of the range structure, really what I would like to see is Tesla to break back above 310 and then look for the next pullback after that. Right now, it's kind of on the balance point. Is it going to teeter off or is it going to teeter up? We don't know yet until we get a little more info, and I think that info will happen once they start breaking above this 310. Obviously, sellers try to trap it, and that's why I want to see that break to disprove those sellers and try to shove their stops in our direction. Looking for a long trade, having the sellers stop out, drive the market even further. Could be a quick pop, a couple days up towards 335, 340s. But I don't think I'm going to gain a whole lot of interest until it starts breaking above that 310, 315 area as some confirmation. There we go. That was the only one that I really saw come in for a user request, if you will. But aside from that, overall, we'll wrap it up a little bit early here. Not a whole lot going on. The markets are pretty slow. Wouldn't be a surprise at all if I heard a bunch of people say, oh, I didn't take any trades today, or maybe I only had one or two. It fits how the day worked so far. A lot of times when you have that really slow morning, I'm always kind of hopeful that the afternoon picks up, but that doesn't look like it's going to be the case either. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully tomorrow we get some early morning movement, wrap it up early, and then just call it a weekend. Aside from that, though, that's going to do it for the outlook. Like I always say, it doesn't matter what market you're trading, whether it's futures, stocks, options, I don't care, cockroach futures, whatever. Always make a plan, trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll be just fine. If you have any questions, feel free to send those in to me, jbrink@slingshotfutures.com. Underneath the video, click on the subscribe button, and the notification bell to the right of that, so you'll be notified every time we go live. We go live Monday through Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to go over our game plan for the following day. So that's going to do it. Enjoy the rest of the day. Hopefully you had a great trading morning. Hopefully you have a good trading afternoon if you're going to keep trading. Hopefully you have a great day trading tomorrow. Have a good weekend. Rest up, and we will see you all back on Monday. All right? Have a good one. We'll talk to you all later.